Sunlight is the best disinfectant, but many in the Catholic Church hierarchy are still stuck squarely in the Dark Ages. A months-long investigation by the Boston Globe found that David Barboza, a parishioner, volunteer, and later administrative assistant at St. Mary's Roman Catholic Church in Bristol, Rhode Island, was accused of sexually abusing multiple boys in the 1970s and 80s. What's worse is that Barboza stayed on the job for more than 2 decades, even though multiple people were aware of the abuse, including St. Mary's Reverend Barry Gamache. The Providence Diocese even investigated those claims, and yet it wasn't until the Globe's reporting that Barboza resigned. Reverend Gamache told the paper that, quote, everyone in town knew, but not a soul mentioned it to him, making sure to add, you can quote me on that. And they did, before pointing out that a diocese investigator, who happened to be a retired state cop lieutenant, did tell Gamache about multiple credible claims several times over the last 20 years. So what was his excuse for that lie? Quote, David explained everything away so perfectly and had a much better explanation. Not that Gamache could remember exactly what the explanation was, but it also didn't help that 2 other nearby priests knew about the findings and did nothing either. That would be Bishop Robert Mulvey and Bishop Thomas Tobin, the bigot who recently told Catholics that LGBTQ Pride Month events went against the Church's values. Values like allowing a serial abuser to find a home in the diocese, I guess? Part of the reason Gamache told the Globe he trusted Barboza was because he had served as a Bristol town councilman, police officer, volunteer firefighter, volunteer Eucharistic minister before he was hired at St. Mary's. In other words, he was deeply entrenched in the community, not unlike many predatory priests. And how do we know during those years he didn't prey on other kids? No wonder why it's taken so long for some of his alleged victims to come forward, including Robert Powers, who filed a lawsuit against Barboza last December.
It took me a long time to get not just the courage, but to find somebody that would actually listen to me. You did something to a child, and you're walking around town like nothing ever happened.
After Mass early last week, Reverend Gamache was confronted by the parishioner who first alerted the diocese of Barboza's abuse less than a year after he was hired, back in 1978. Gamache apparently apologized several times, but it's far too little and far too late. Survivors need more than an apology. They need action, legal action against their abusers. The criminal statute of limitations for the sexual abuse of minors needs to be repealed. In Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and in every state across the country, the rules only serve to protect those who manage to bully their victims into years of silence. It's long past time to demand more for survivors and from the Catholic Church.